Hi, everybody. Manar here. I'm a life coach and hypnotherapist, and I like to get comfy in my videos. And um, the area that I really, really love to talk about is how you can find out that someone in your life is a narcissist by finding the signs in you. The red flags are not how someone is acting or someone is talking or doing something. Yeah, they are. And they're a bit exhausting for you to understand them and try to like crack their code. It's a lot of work. You're not an investigator and you're not a mind reader, but you can and you always know how you feel. That is something that you can easily be aware of. So, how you can use self awareness to find out that someone is a narcissist. So, I made a video about this post on Reddit, a lady that wrote something about her husband, and everything that I was reading was screaming covert narcissist. And I want to show you how I found that out based on not only his actions but mainly how she felt and how she was in this whole situation. Okay? I'm going to actually just do that. I'm not going to talk about him at all. So, she says, my husband, 36 male, and I, 40 female. That was my first clue that something could be wrong here. Have been together for 5 years, and in those years of our marriage, has been amazing. Of course, there are moments where we'd bicker, but it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. I was very happily married and thought my marriage was rock solid. We've been through challenging times, but always weathered anything came our way. Sounds awesome, right? This December felt like we're in a good place. There was no drama. That was my second clue that something was wrong because the title was My Husband Blindsided Me and Left Suddenly, right? So the first clue was no drama. First thing I thought was like, no drama. And then all of a sudden, two things here. Maybe he's cheating, and maybe like you guys were having one of them like silent marriages, you know? And that's a huge red flag. It's not a good thing. When people say we don't fight, that's, But she said that they do bicker and everything. But yeah, there was no drama at all. On December 23rd, I noticed a funny tone in my husband's voice when I asked him a question. So I asked him if he was a light, and he tells me he wants to move out. She writes, like, what? And yeah, I'm totally with you. I'm totally with you, girl. Like, what? Just hours before, we are cuddling in bed and being playful, and this came out of nowhere. So obviously, I had a meltdown because I was blindsided, right? Mm, should I say this about the action? Well, let me just reflect it. So they were cuddling in bed, right? And being playful. And she says, out of nowhere. Do you really think that is out of nowhere? So he probably, I said I didn't want to talk about his actions here and focus more on her. Well, I'm gonna focus more on her, but this like the ad writes itself, right? He had this in his mind, but he wanted something, right? So you're playful with someone, cuddling in bed, but your mind is like, I'm gonna leave her, and I'm gonna tell her after that, after I get what I want. Red flag. All right. So she had a meltdown, and because she was blindsided. That's a red flag in you when you feel that something is all of a sudden. Because first, there is nothing out of a sudden. I don't believe in that. Everything takes takes its own gradual progress, right? So when you feel like you were blindsided, it means that you probably were deceived. When you feel betrayed, when you feel shocked, when you feel like you've been blindsided, it means that someone was lying to you. That's a red flag in her, right? So fast forward through Christmas, I barely make it through the holidays as I need to pretend everything's okay for everyone. Yeah, hate that. I ended up in the hospital multiple times, having massive panic attacks and heart issues. I was unable to eat, drink, or sleep. It's like I'm not even in my body anymore and I'm living someone else's life. I'm not someone who has ever had panic attacks. That's a huge red flag. When something happens to you that has never happened to you before, that's a huge red flag. When you are in a relationship and you think something like it's awesome and all of a sudden you're having panic attacks and go to the hospital multiple times when that never happened to you before, huge red flag that something is wrong in the relationship. Because let's think this way. Let's So she had this belief that her relationship was rock solid, right? These are her words, right? And then all of a sudden something happens. So she had this belief, this facade, this whole idea that this is how things are. And then all of a sudden, quote, something like that happens, it means that all of that was not true, right? And when something happens that like health is a red flag. When a relationship comes onto your health, it means that relationship is not good for you. On December 27th, he moved out into a room he rented in a shared house. I want to circle back to that later. I did all I could to treat him with grace and love, as I really didn't want him to go, but decided if he left with me in anger it would be harder for him. That's a bigger red flag. That's a huge red flag. So the person said that he wants to move out and he moved in a shared house because he'd rather live there. I already circled back to it. Because he'd rather live in a shared house in a room than to live with you. And you went into the hospital multiple times. And the first thing you thought of, or the main thing you thought of, was him. Now let's talk about this. How we act is kind of like downloaded. It didn't come all of a sudden, right? This is how you've been trained to respond to things happening in your life. You think of this person, how he feels. I don't want to leave in anger because I'm thinking of him. Your immediate thought, even though you went to the hospital multiple times, was him. That's either how you've been trained with him or how you've been trained all of your life, or both of them together. Because our behaviors don't just come from the sky, right? This is how things have been working for us. You you make a behavior and then that behavior works for you, and then you repeat it. That's how behaviors are created. And for you, the behavior that you've been trained to do, and you did do it here, is that you thought of him. If he left with me in anger, oh, I don't want to be angry because I'm thinking of him. Why don't you want to be angry? What would happen if he left and you're angry? What would happen if you're angry? There is underlying behavior here, underlying pattern that you don't want to repeat, which is you being angry, right? You don't want to leave. You don't want him to leave when you're in anger. Why? What are the consequences of you being angry? Read between the lines. He probably would be angry that you're angry, right? Why are you suppressing your anger? I helped him pack. Now, this is another red flag. I helped him pack and bought and washed his new bedding because I love him. And am as in like I am, apparently pathetic. Apparently pathetic. Who told you that? When you write apparently, it means that you didn't say that by yourself. Someone told you that you're pathetic, and I'm assuming he did. I helped him pack and bought this, right? So after all of that, okay, we even ended up having amazing sex the day before he left, too. He always gets what he wants, huh? So not only you went to the hospital multiple times, you suppressed your anger, you're thinking of him and ignoring your needs, you also gave him sex before he left. Just like you were cuddling in bed before he told you he wanted to move out. I'm not even saying conclusions, I'm just repeating and pointing out things. I'm just reflecting things. Look at it objectively, girl. He said, my being so loving. He said, my being so loving. I mean, I think she means that she was being so loving and kind about it. Ah, okay. Made him feel bad, which wasn't my intention. So you being loving and okay about this whole thing made him feel bad. So you're angry, that doesn't work. If you're good, that doesn't work either. Right? Which wasn't my intention. She says, I love him so much and could see he got something going on. So again, even though that all of these things happened with you, you're thinking of him. Something going on with him. That's a pattern that you keep thinking. So the pattern here is that when someone is occupying your mind and you care about him more than you care about yourself and your hurt and your emotions, that's a huge red flag that this person is like taking your energy, draining your energy. We've spoken via text and on the phone. He's indicated to me that it has nothing to do with me and he loves me, but that due to life stress, he's lost a romantic love for me. Red flag. I know this sentence. I heard it so many times with my clients. He said he'd like to try and date me to see if we can rekindle. This one I heard a lot actually. Yeah. Like you've been married for 5 years and you're like, let's try to date. Where was it? I lost it. Rekindle, yeah. So he's back and forth and all over the place, which makes it even more torturous for me. Yes, girl, that's a red flag in you as well, that you're confused. You're like, what does he want? What did he mean by that? Why did he do this? Why did he do that? when you find yourself thinking a lot about someone else's actions and what are the underlying meanings behind them, red flag that that person is a narcissist. Ups and downs. It's Katy Perry's, what's her name? Katy, hot and cold, hot, because you're hot and you're cold. Katy Perry, yeah. You know that song? When you find yourself in that hot and cold kind of graph or curve, yeah, that's a huge red flag. All of this came about after he came home from a trip in England for something. I thought maybe he had an affair or was having one, but I'm 99% sure he isn't. This also gives me a red flag in you, as in, like, again, when I say a red flag in you, I mean like something that's happening in you that should tell you that that person isn't good. So everything is adding up to an affair, but you're still second guessing yourself. What does that tell me? It tells me that you've been gaslighted more than you've been living on this earth. He has a lot of work stress, and my teenage son has been a huge pain in the ass, and I know a lot of stress comes from him. So, your teenage son and the work stress have been always there before his trip to England. It has nothing to do with that. There is a turning point here. In storytelling, we call it turning point. There's a turning point, and that turning point is his trip to England, because the sun has always been there and the stress has always been there. Everything says affair, he cheated, but you're 99.9% sure he isn't. That's a red flag that you've been gaslighted and you keep on second guessing yourself, and you've been trained to doubt your thoughts and your conclusions, and you've been trained to doubt your intelligence. My husband has always been loving and amazing to me, a very kind person, but since he told me he was leaving, he's shown me this side of him that is cruel and icy, and I have no idea what to make of it. I'll tell you what to make of it. He made his mind that he wants to leave you, but all of the let's date and blah blah blah, it's just he wants to get something out of you, and we know what he wants to get out of you. I'm completely devastated and left with no closure. Uh, yeah, he's not being himself at all. Unless 5 years were an act. Of course, they were an act, love. He didn't want to separate yet, as he's deciding if he wants me, I guess. Well, girl, let me ask you this. Where is your goddamn self-esteem? Let me actually stop reading here and ask you this. You and anyone else who is watching this and has and this feels familiar to them. Um, Let me ask you this. You probably were always like his mama, and he probably complains a lot, and he probably, like, correct me if I'm wrong, does he complain a lot? And um, did he have financial issues? Did you help him a lot financially? Is the house that you're living in was mortgaged by you, or you paid more than half of it? It feels like, does he give you the silent treatment a lot? Do you end up apologizing when you feel hurt and you want to communicate that you've been hurt, but you end up apologizing? Everything screams covert narcissist. And the main thing that screams covert narcissist is that after all of this, The main thing she thinks about is him. Let me show you the last thing she wrote very quickly. She says, I was heartbroken. I was doing all I could do to try to bring him home, like writing open me when letters, because I was worried about him on his own. On his own. He's 30 fucking. Sorry. He's 36. And you're worried about him on his own. You've always been his mama, lady. Because clearly something is up with him. But that probably didn't help. Made me look desperate. Anything that's I've shifted from deep grief to a hint of anger now, and I'm feeling frustrated. Yeah, you should, because you've been always his mama. And when I first read like 36 and 40, when you met him 5 years ago, you were 35 and he was 31. You probably had your shit together more than he did. And um yeah, look, the fact that you always think of him even after he left, even after you've been to the hospital multiple times, lady, and that never happened with you, but you keep thinking of him, right? You don't just have one teenage son, you have two. You have two teenage boys, and you've been probably the man of the relationship, always taking care of maybe bills, taking care of like if you have a car or things that he should be taken care of. You probably helped him with his studies and work as well. Everything. The main thing that screams covert narcissist is how you think after you've been hurt. You're suppressing your anger because you're worried how he feels. You're suppressing your emotions. You're thinking of him. You're worried about him on his own as a 36 grown ass man. Covert narcissist, you've been played, and he took everything that he could take out of you. Don't give him more. Emotional support, you're not his mama. He's 30 effing 6. You're older than him for a reason. He wanted a mama. So stop it. Enough is enough. Get your self esteem back. Pack your self esteem and F off. I hope the best for you. Like, the signs are always in us, how we feel, how someone makes us feel, how we react, how our mind operates when something happens. If a person is always occupying your mind, it's a huge red flag. Be safe out there.